We are live. I hope everyone will enjoy. We got a recurring guest that was there in the past. You can present yourself.
Hey everyone, it's kantbei here. I'm a pretty high-level fog player, best known for his weird openings and gimmick strategies.
That's good, man. I'm glad to have you again. We need to play another game, man. I just enjoy playing a lot with you, even if you're that much better than me. It's still very fun to play these games, and then we cover these games. We need to do another one. But yeah, what do you think of this map? Why did you pick this map?
It was one of the maps in the current rotation that I heard you really liked. It's also like something I don't think has been covered by a lot of players before. Um, and yeah, like there's some interesting openings on this map that I've discovered with Star Flash, but actually it relates more to like player two rather than player one. So in hindsight, I probably should have put myself in player two. But it is what it is.
So I'd like to say something. Is it a good thing to like break the pipe scene? Because I've seen almost nobody breaking that pipe scene there. Is it a good thing?
No, the pipe seems completely useless. It's a bit like Stalingrad in that regard. You should just never do it.
Okay, so now I understand why I am the only one that really wants to kill that pipe scene. So why is it?
So similar to the last video, right? You have to be thinking, what does breaking the pipe scene allow you to do that you couldn't do otherwise, right? And the only thing that really does is it allows your one base, maybe, to shift towards the right side, or the center base to shift towards the top. The problem is like because of how it's been laid out with like the terrain and everything, it's probably as fast, if not faster, to just go the normal route and then front switch along the way, right? So this is only ever relevant. Like the seam break is only ever relevant if they've somehow managed to push your base all the way in, like one of them, and isolate them. But if that's happened, it's also the case where you already lost anyway, so it doesn't matter what you do, right? So like there's just no reasonable game state where you'd want to do it.
Okay,
Like you'd
and
rather resign to play that position. It's kind of like the problem.
and I will also say this as personal experience. I feel like Hawk is actually much better than Sasha in the matchup, even if you will never get a Black Wave or a Black Storm. Even there, I think your day to day is just much better than mine. And I will add this to more. Recently, I fought a Sasha player as Hawk, and I steamrolled the crap out of that player, despite not really having any power in Super. So it's very interesting. Like people tend to forget that Hawk just has a really good day to day. But that's just my
Yeah,
experience.
yeah, like you're not alone in this. Like I think like 90% of high level fog players would agree with you that Hawk basically doesn't get countered by Sasha in fog, especially fog maps like this, which are like super high income. Because like number one, the value builds up pretty high. You can actually unlock your COP if Sasha misplays slightly by like buying one vehicle before popping COP, right? Which happens a lot even at my level. Like I've done that tons, right? The other thing that could happen is, for example, you just Sasha just isn't able to find the right fights to start trading down, and then you just have like 300,000 army on each side. You get COP easily in one turn, right? And she can't do anything to stop you. So on and then like yeah, like you said, Hawk's D2D is pretty good. If you can get like enough units out on the board before Sasha can really like punish you with the plus 10% income she gets, which really translates into like one or two extra vehicles early game. Then you just have the better day to day, right? Like Sasha's day to day is one of the worst in the game in terms of scaling, right?
Yeah,
So that's kind of the thing because like the main limitation here, right, in Advance Wars is that there's only so many tiles you can attack from eventually, no matter how big the map is, right? Like attack tiles are a big limitation. And so if you only have so many attack tiles, that also means only so many units can be relevant, which means powers which give you extra vehicles, like Sasha's, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't matter as much as having just pure stats. Pure stats will always outscale her, right? So it's just a matter of how do I get to that game state. In standard, it's somewhat tricky for Hawk, right? Because like you can actually see stuff, right? And it's easier to attack a little bit in the early game because of that. But in Fog, it's just like you're either gambling, right? Which means 50-50 you lose, which is not great. Or you don't gamble and then you probably lose anyway if there's no skill gap. So for that reason, like Stasha's barely tier 1 in Fog. She's more like tier 1.5. Like we've been tempted to put her in tier 2 in the past. It's just that it makes that tier even worse than it already is, which is why we haven't done it. The power level why she's not tier 1.
yeah, she's really in between, and that's funny because Olaf has literally no day-to-day, and the only reason why he's tier 2 is because global damage is disgusting. And like there's no way he go get a lightning strike, and that's the reason why he is tier 2. And Max actually has chance against Sasha. He is the only seal that can actually take on Sasha in tier 2. So I understand why she's 1, but just like what you said, as a Sasha main that kind of suck at the game, I can tell she's really hard to play. And the other day I was laughing a lot because I found a content creator that truly hated Sasha. I don't know if he was being sarcastic or if he really believed it, but it was like, if you play Sasha, you play to win, and you hate the game. And I was like, man, I hope that guy doesn't really believe that, and I hope he's really sarcastic, because he plays Sturm, and that's like the reverse, because Sturm is like a cheat code. What do you think of Sturm?
Yeah. Sturm is probably fine. Sturm's really hurting a lot in the current meta because any map which he breaks, he's usually banned on, right? That's the first thing that we are usually checking for in map committee.
That's
The other thing is like we have a lot of good Hawk maps, and Hawk is like the ultimate counter to Sturm in Fog, especially high income, right?
Yeah.
Because basically, well, I guess Javier is a better counter, but no one really picks Javier, right? So Hawk is like the meta counter, right? Because he just has to survive, and then Sturm basically has no chances. I've played this matchup several times. I think the only one I've seen who's made Sturm work against a Hawk, like another really strong Hawk there, is Nightmare of Q, and like he's basically rank 1 or like rank 2 in Fog, right? So like if you're not rank 1 or rank 2, you're probably gonna lose to the Hawk. Is the problem.
That's good to know. So I think you have mouse control, do you?
Yep, I do.
So I let you be
so-
in charge, man.
Alright, sounds good. So there's here in your first move, you've actually done the normal opening. You go for the base first, but Starflash and I have theorized, and actually I have played this in quite a few games, where your first infantry actually goes for the airport, not the base.
And how is
And
it
the
good?
reason why is you rush out the T-copter towards the top side for you in as P2. This doesn't work as P1, so that's why I don't recommend P1 does this. It's fine. It's just not as good, right? P2 it feels really nice to play. So there's a certain timing where you get the airport first, you get a T-copter, and then the key tiles you go to this city, right? And then from this city, you can see like you can unload one tile, you can go for 3 different cities, right?
Yeah.
That's like the initial kind of idea with that T-copter, and then there's just a series of moves you can do where you're boosting super fast into your tower, into this corner, combined with like tanks and one artillery and maybe an AA, streaming towards this side where you have a really, really strong early game attack. And that's why like T-copter is nice, because like all the infantry that normally is like struggling to get to the front are at the front at the time when this side doesn't have a lot of infantry, right? So even if they open vehicles here, it's hard for them to contest that space.
That's very good to know. I will actually, as player 2, I will try out a lot that strat. And now I gotta say, why did you pick Blue Moon, bruh? You stole my spot.
I actually picked one at random. I think this was actually like the default, so I just didn't change it. Okay, so you go for the base first. That's pretty normal. Um, I think about doing the airport cap, even though it's not that good. But I decide like, I'm just gonna do a base opening. So normal openings from both of us, which is pretty mirrored start. Okay, you go for the airport instead of the forward capture. That's probably fine. I think like the forward capture is technically more income because from here it goes to here, right? And then there's a bunch of stuff it can capture. The airport inf basically can't do anything after it captures the airport. It's just too slow, which is why it's slightly less income. But you are Sasha, and you want an early airport so you can start like spamming out more vehicles with like copter triple inf or like just getting more unit count in general and really maximizing that income, right? Because the plus
Yeah,
income doesn't matter by itself. It's like what it allows you to get. So in your case, it's like it lets you start getting +1 unit count every turn by spamming air, for example. It's like one way you can play it.
that's exactly my thought process. As Sasha, even if I got capture chains and stuff, I really want my airport as soon as I can. And that's also why, as player 2, I will consider your opening much more often because I actually like it a lot. I just never thought of it. Now, I went for APC because I want to speed up my capture game, and I want to like increase my income faster because I know you're better than me, and I'm Sasha, and my only way to like stay on top is like to make more money than you.
Arguably that's a mistake. Um, so yes, it's true. Like your only way to win is to get more income than me, but how you want to get that income usually it's not by getting a transport, right? But it's by attacking me early on so that I can't get as much income, right? So there are a couple of problems with the APC. Number one, Sasha's day to day is basically I get one extra tank venue by like day 6, day 7, something like that, and then you use that extra tank to do something on the board, right? If you go APC, you basically said I have no extra tanks on the board, and I get some cities faster, yes, but I've just given up most of my attacking chances against you, and so now we're gonna go on even on income, which is not what you want, right? Like eventually we're gonna go even on cities if you go on APC or transport, unless it's like a forced transport map, right? Those are different, but this is not a forced transport map. The other thing is like Keycopter is just much better in my opinion. I don't think you ever go APC as player 2. I don't think there's a good reason to.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Also, I don't know if like the center base APC actually does anything that an APC from a different base would do. Well, I'm not 100% sure about that because like I haven't studied this kind of like APC line before, but intuitively that's what I would say are the things that kind of makes this not as good.
So
You could also do some kind of power rush though.
the idea I had behind that APC there is the fact that this is the base the further away from the battlefield, and I
Hmm.
thought like having the top base making more infantry would be better for me because it's closer from buildings. And then, as you can see, my APC will now push my infantry on the building in the bottom. So that was also my idea.
Mm. The problem is it's fine if you want to find at the bottom. Part of the problem though is like if you look at how infantry develops naturally, you will have a ton of infantry in the top side by like how they capture right and how they move normally. Like that's just kind of inevitable, and you have slightly less infantry on your HQ side, which is why like I said earlier in the T-Copter opening, you usually have like some kind of huge attack here, and I say like there's no huge attack here, right? It just
Yeah,
doesn't work the same way. Um, the infantry swarm arriving at the time it does is important because that's the timing you get where you actually have you are sure that you have more infantry here than your opponent can possibly get. That's kind of just like forced in the map, I guess you could say. Like there's not really a good way around it other than like doing really weird capture stuff. Um, by trying to divert it with an APC towards the right side, you're kind of playing into a board state that's good for me and arguably not as good for you.
Okay.
Although, of course, there are some game states where like I get scared top because like I'm normally scared there anyway. Like that, if I'm assuming optimal play, right, I shouldn't be fighting here anyway. I'm not aggressive with my captures here, and then you stalemate me here, right? That's one way you could get income advantage for sure, but it's very very high risk. I think it's very gambly. I don't think it's like something you do every game because it's easily punishable if they know it's coming.
That's very good to know, and I'm also glad to hear about APC being kind of bad as Sasha, and I fully see your point. For a long time, I was playing her wrong then, because I like making APC with Sasha to just pretend I will speed up my captures, but you're right, like, she's kind of aggressive because of her early income. So, would you say her break on opening are good, or you'd rather go like tank opening because it's Sasha? Which one would you go with? Recon or tank?
If I'm Sasha here into Hawk, I definitely go recons. Well, okay, so first I would go T-Copter, right? And then I would go recons. And then I would go tanks, right?
Yeah.
So T-Copter is because, like, again, it's even though for the same reasons, like I said, like, oh, you're -1 vehicle, but the benefit of the T-Copter is like it synchronizes your income here super well, and it gives you like a better attack on the top side because you have an infantry advantage, like paired with an artillery that's very strong, right? And some tank backup. That's very hard to refute from the opening. Recons are so you have vision on like what I'm doing, and not necessarily to like delay my captures, but kind of just to know how I'm streaming my armies, right? Like, am I if you see like almost nothing here, then you know, oh, he's doing some kind of like all-in defense on his HQ because he thinks I'm gonna attack there. You can react accordingly and just hit me where I'm not, right? Like where my vehicles are not defending. Um, Recons also have the really nice thing that they counter any transport opening I do, which is why I didn't do any transport at all here. Although it's also kind of irrelevant because like I didn't build a tank until like day 7. Like that's one thing I want to point out. Like it's day 7, even though I have a huge amount of money, I'm not buying anything yet. That's not because I plan to buy a Neo tank or something. This is not Dragons in the Dark, but it's just because I realize like if I'm not going any transport opening, I'm just doing like this normal infantry spam thing. You have no way of getting a recon to like harass any of these captures up until like turn 8 or turn 9. Like I calculated this. Therefore, I can just build as much infantry as I want because like you always want infantry in Fog anyway, right? Like you're always running out.
Yeah.
I'll just build more infantry and then I'll build a tank, like more tanks the next turn. Not as if I'm down anything, but I just have more infantry at the front. It's just better for my development, right? So like I'm also kind of in a way saying, okay, I'm not gonna attack into you. Like I'm giving up any aggressive options because I didn't go recon, I didn't go tank, right? So your capture phase will be completely fine, but I'm just gonna have more infantry in the mid game to fight you. That's kind of like what I'm saying with this opening. So it's kind of like a more high level thing, but this is somewhat common with a few players like Kogat, for example. He really likes doing this in maps where you can't really attack very early with recon.
So I'll just slow down the volume on YouTube because I think it's slightly too high.
Okay.
Perfect. I think now it should be better. I like it took me like 20 minutes, but now it should be perfect. So let's keep going.
Alright. Sure. So I'm not sure if like I go triple tank here or if I do something else. I go artillery, tank, tank. Okay. That's fairly reasonable. Again, like artillery on this side, trying to put this corner, which is gonna be really strong. 2 tanks to make sure like recons don't just ruin my day, right? And like I get my captures.
Yeah.
Here I noticed like you're going for the pipe seam pretty early on. Like that's probably a mistake. So even if this pipe seam was good, it's not that like it's not good enough that you would break it as the first thing. Like you usually want to be doing something else. Again, like the pipe seam break only is matters for an aggressive CO like Sasha into like a defensive one like Hawk if that pipe seam allows you to be even more aggressive at some point. And this pipe seam will never let you be more aggressive.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's one interesting thing you can do with that pipe seam destroyed is to speed up transport. Um, it really helps out with APCs.
Sure, but like you don't really want more than one APC on this map in general. Like not until the like mid game, I would say, do you really want more than one transport. And even then, you're usually getting a T copter over an APC,
Yeah.
right? So we're already kind of like struggling to justify like why are we doing this, right? Other thing I would say, APC probably should have been in the forest instead of here. Unless like there was a particular thing you wanted to do with this.
I wanted to
I think
boost
this
the
goes.
infantry from the building.
Yeah, but you can do that from the forest.
Yeah, you're right. I was like, the infantry on the bottom will go in the forest, and I will boost the other one. But you're right. You
Yeah,
see,
so
this is
yeah, so there's no
my old school Advance Wars player mind that talked to me, and I always forget that transports are actually different in Advance Wars by Web. It just never really sit right with me.
yeah, so if you'll notice like every city that you could boost this infantry to, this one, you actually have like one extra tile, right? So
Yeah,
like you can boost, so for example to get here you can boost from the forest, right? But you can actually be here. What that tells you is like you can actually be one tile back and still get any of the cities that you'd want to get, right? Which is why I'm saying like you should just have been here. It's just strictly better because like there's no city that you can't get because like you, for example, to get here you can just be here, right? Or and
yeah.
then you unload one and then you can get either of these. So all
I
three cities you could realistically go for, you're fine.
I think the other idea is maybe I wanted to have choices whether I go up or bottom with my APC. Maybe that's what happened. But looking back, I feel like that APC was really trash.
Yeah, basically
uh,
like you
it
always go to the right here. There's no point going top because all the captures you want are on the right side, right? If you look at the top, like you already have like a million infantry there,
yeah,
moving to capture. By the time the APC gets there, like okay, you added one extra imp there, but it's not even gonna like it's gonna capture one building, maybe if you're lucky, right? And like
yeah.
here, it's like you have two infantry, right? It's like that's kind of like what I'm saying.
So I will say this. I think I still paid the APC back, but it was still a really bad APC nonetheless. So here I did a war crime, and here's the thought process behind it. I still made 3 units, so it doesn't really affect that much my unit count. And the other thing
Hmm.
is, I thought that was right after we played our other game. So I thought that was important to like blow up that pipe seam as fast as I could. It's only after I played much more games in this map that I realized maybe it was bad because nobody did that. Like I was one of the few that really wanted to like kill that pipe seam. And that's funny
Yeah.
because I was confident with this map because my first game ever in this map I really destroyed and dominated my opponent like I never did before. And yes, his elo wasn't that high, but I felt like a 1000 playing because I had like everything set up right, you know?
I mean, did you also blow up the pipe seam in that game?
Yeah, exactly. That's why it gave me that illusion that it was a good thing to do.
Okay, so one thing I will note, like, you went for like a fast copter, fast bomber, right? Um, in this kind of like opening, you're already kind of like gambling, right? I'm not saying that's bad because like I also do this a lot. Like for example, on Verdunua, people have started catch on the fact that kantbei always goes copter first on that map, and then he'll just suicide it into the first unit he sees, right? And no one has an AA at that time, right? So it's just like 3 damage for me, and people have given me shit for that. Like they say, you know, what if they have an AA? And I'm like, yeah, but no one gets AA, right? Like I've done this 10 games, no one's ever punished me. So I'm not saying this is bad. What I am saying is that if you're gonna go for this kind of like gambit opening, you just have to like go full aggressive with your copter and hope I don't have an AA and just hit something, right? Because the
Yeah,
longer you wait, the more likely I have an AA, the less likely this makes any sense,
yeah,
right? And then bomber first, I would say is like not good. So the problem is like bomber only really wants to hit neo tanks and medium tanks. If
yeah,
it's hitting anything else, it's kind of like just sad. Like it's not really very good value, especially since they're like gambling every turn that it's hitting something that an AA just smacks it and then you're kind of just dead, right?
yeah.
Um, so that's the reason why like the bomber's kind of bad. Unless you were expecting me to go neo tank first, and to be fair, I have done that against you like more than once. But
Many
unless
maps,
you were
many
expecting,
times.
yeah, but unless like you were expecting that specific line, I don't see a justification for the bomber. I would have just gone like tanks and copters. I would have also considered like a neo tank, right? Neo tank is better because even though neo tanks don't kill as much, it's like an actual wall, right? And
Yeah,
like the only way I can stop it is if I have an artillery, I have copters, I have a bomber, right? But I'm not gonna go bomber, obviously. So if I have like artillery in place, right? So like that's why you pair the neo tank with recons. Recon spot where the artillery are. Neo tank kills everything not covered by it because like you can't have more than one or two artillery anyway. So that's how like the neo tank play works. But yeah, like the bomber is kind of flimsy. It feels very hard to defend, especially since you have no tanks basically right now. Yeah, so like if we look at your army, you have one APC, one recon, one copter, one bomber, one AA, and two artillery and the like infantry, right? What that would tell you is like if I have even a single artillery right now, although I just built one, so it's actually fine for you. But if I had a single artillery like 2 turns ago, the game's already actually over because the moment I realize you have no tanks, I just send my artillery forward and then it can just kill anything it wants, and there's really nothing you can do.
and it's hilarious because it's all about diversity. My army is all about diversity. I got everything, but it's not a good composition. And it's just looking back that I realize how bad this composition is. And I will also say this about the bombers. I always felt like they were a response unit, and
Hmm.
in these maps in the current rotation, I feel the need like I need to blow up the pipe seam in every map, even if it's not that amazing. I just have that urge to like blow up the pipe seam, and the bomber is just the best way to do it.
Well, part of the problem too is like if you use the this didn't matter in this game because like I wasn't looking at your pipe seam because I was thinking like who would ever blow up their pipe seam, right? So I simply wasn't looking for it. But if I was looking for it, I would have instantly realized, oh, you actually went bomber because that's the only unit that can blow up a pipe seam from that health, right?
Um,
Unless you had like two
I did damage it twice before the bomber hit, so it was at
with the
like
artillery.
70, 60. So you would have
Oh,
known I
okay.
have a high cost unit, but you wouldn't have known like
Yeah.
if I had a bomber or a neo tank. And that's usually what I do with a bomber. The only time I didn't do that was in my previous game in the map we did last time. I did a game in this map as Eagle, and this time around I was like, I don't care if he knows I got a bomber, that bomber will wreak havoc. And it did. I blew up the pipe seam. I killed 3 tanks, 2 anti-air with it. That was hilarious. That bomber paid itself back twice. Just by killing tanks and anti-air.
Yeah. It was an okay bomber. I wouldn't say it was like very good, but it was okay. Partly because like my air response was like too slow, right? Like by many turns, I was kind of gambling on the fact that this was gonna be a tank state. I was not expecting you to have like a bomber and then a copter, right? So the moment I saw this turn, I was like, okay, what the hell is going on? But also at this vortex, I kind of knew like, okay, so he has basically almost no tanks. And even though I have like no air response, I think I decided to like just keep fighting anyway. Like I just decided I'm gonna kill all your infantry. I don't care, right? I'm gonna kill everything around your bomber, and let's see like how well you can do. The other thing I'm doing is I'm also committing some vehicles to the left side now, because I
Yeah.
know like I have no air response here anyway. 2 extra hits not gonna matter, but I can kill all your infantry here, and that might be pretty good for me to create like a pressure, and force you to divert vehicles away from the fight with your bomber. So here you start committing pretty hard to like kill to like deny my tower capture. I think this was your entire idea, like from the beginning. Um, and then you're also attacking me on the top side, maybe kind of expecting like all my vehicles would be here. That was a reasonable assumption to make, but obviously like that's not how I decided to lay out my forces.
And I will also add a
And
bit more to my bomber thought process because I just remembered another reason why I bought that bomber. I'm Sasha. That's just in case you had a bomber of your own. I didn't want any surprise. And you also never banned stealth, and I have that allergy for stealth. I truly despise stealth. But anyway, what I was saying is, I'm Sasha, and I can dump value like that. And if I get more stars than you, I can higher my chance on denying you your Black Wave and Black Storm. But I think the execution of that idea was poorly done because that bomber didn't get that much value. But that was basically my thought process. I was like, if I lose that bomber, it will charge my meter. But it's kind of wrong. Like, the idea is there, but it's not a great idea.
yeah, I mean the problem is like the bomber should just be a neo tank, right? Like that's the main problem.
Yeah.
If this was a neo tank, you probably win this game, unironically.
Oh,
Because like
really?
I do not, yeah.
You don't
Like
have
there's no like
response,
right
yeah.
now, it's about to get like whacked by an AA, and then the
Yeah.
game's over for you. Basically, like at this point, I've already won. Even though like I'm down 30k, like I'm only going to equalize after I build. But because like you have so much value in this bomber, by the time my AA hits it, it's basically useless, and then almost doesn't matter what you do if I play this correctly. I will always just win, right? The other thing is like the fighter is just bad. You just never get a preemptive fighter. It doesn't matter if I get a stealth or not. You kind of just ignore it. Like that's kind of like how you play against it. In the same way, like so here's the thing, right? The bomber is doing more damage than a stealth per turn. Like that's just how damage values work. And you're seeing like even though you have a bomber getting a hit every turn with a copter, I'm still basically fine just like ignoring it and just hitting everything around it, right? You do the same thing against a stealth, right? And you're kind of fine because like stealth does even worse damage. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like the idea behind it.
And that's
Uh,
hilarious because I always thought Nietang were better than bombers, and as I said, like the many reason why I bought that bomber, like I did say every single reason. But usually I always rather buy a Nietang than a bomber because I know a bomber is easier to shut down, and a bomber is also more of a response unit, while the Neotank itself is a more aggro aggressive unit. That's the idea, and that's I bought another one because I'm like, I lost one, you won't expect a second one. But
well,
at that
okay.
point,
So the reason why that doesn't work.
I also thrown the towel because I was like, okay, I think I lost, but I will still try a few turns. But yeah, I felt like I was behind in terms of money, and I was right. You're about to catch up to me, and that's also like the feeling I was getting. I was like, oh my, I will lose. Like he is about to catch up to me in terms of money.
Yeah, I mean, you can already see like the problem with your composition, right? Like you just don't have a way to kill my AA, and that's kind of like very important if you're going to go for like bombers or copters. You want to have like a tank advantage so that you can actually hunt down my AAs, right?
Yeah,
Because like if you have less tanks than me, you always feel like you can never spare enough tank hits to hit the AA because like my tanks kill your tanks and then I still have AA running around. Like you need 2 tank hits to kill an AA, right?
yeah,
So without a tank advantage, spamming air does not work long term. It's kind of gambity early game, like I said earlier, and you know it can work as a gamble, but the gamble runs out eventually, right? And so even though when I go for like copter first or like 2 copters before a vehicle, after that I just stop air completely and I just start spamming tanks. And then at some point I restart air production, but without like tanks, this composition just cannot work, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have two AA here. One is at 6 HP after you hit it with a bomber, which is nice, but you also lost the bomber, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then now like you basically feel like you can't do anything against me,
Yeah.
and that's purely down to like your composition, right? The fact that I even lost one tank here is just me not watching the replay. It took me until now to realize you have an artillery in this forest. I could have known that like 4 turns ago. I just didn't watch replay. That's kind of like why I'm doing silly things.
I
But
never
yeah,
watch the
it ends up.
replays. I focus in my games, man. Well, I focus. I should say I got a bunch of games. I just
Yeah,
there's a
and
game
then
there. Let's do the turn. Oh, there's a game there. Let's do the turn. Uh,
okay, so people might be curious, why do I go T-Copter here? So mid-game T-Copter is a very strong idea on a lot of maps like Stalingrad and this one. Because like you'll usually end up in a situation where you don't have enough infantry at the front at some point. So the moment that you feel like you can get away with a transport because like you're winning slightly, it's an easy way to strengthen your position, even though, it doesn't help you attack, but sometimes you need infantry to attack, right? So
yeah.
mid game transport is nice if you feel like you have some vehicle tempo, but not enough to just straight up win by like spamming more vehicles, right? Because they can retreat slightly and defend that way. Helicopter is a very nice option for that. I also went bomber because at this point I realized you have basically no small tanks from what I'm seeing. Like it's been like 14 turns. I have not like I've seen one tank in
And you
14
killed
turns,
it.
but I've seen a bomber and a fighter. Yeah. So I was like, okay, his only play right now to get back into the game is he buys a Neo tank, right? And he spams Neo tanks against me, and maybe he can like do something with that. So I have to shut that down. How do I shut that down? I get a bomber, right? And that's the fastest way I can to make sure you can't really do anything against me anymore. And you'll notice like the difference, right? Like if I have a bomber here right now, even though you have a fighter and an AA, you actually can't kill it because I just have so many small tanks to like wall for it, right?
Yeah.
And to just hunt down like the AA. So it's just like really, really hard for you to engage into it. Whereas you see in like your early position, you have a bomber, and even though I have no AA, I can still fight into you because you have no small tanks. That's kind of like the difference. So small things like that matter a lot in like making compositions work.
And I will also add a bit more to my game plan I had earlier, and it's what I call the 700 trap. And this is funny because I called it the 700 trap, but a lot of 900 actually do that a lot, is trying to deny the tower of the player, and the end result is you, as someone that tried to deny it, you lose a bunch of units. Um,
Mm.
and and that's sometimes it can work if you're lucky enough. It's like a gamble, as you said earlier, but most of the time you will lose. Like you try your best to stop that tower, but that tower is meant to be to that player. So if you just push a bit further, you will end up having it at some point. And all of the
Mm.
units you try to use to just deny that building, they all died for nothing. And that's why I call it the 700 trap. Because a lot of low elo player do that. Like, I'd say 90% of the low elo player do that. And this is why they don't
Yeah.
really improve.
Yeah, it's kind of a trap, but at the same time, like it can work. I would say in this actual matchup, that was a pretty good idea. But again, like the execution was wrong, and the reason the execution is wrong is because we had no tanks, right?
Yeah,
Like the copter and the bomber actually ended up doing things. Although I would argue, like if you had two copters, that's better than a bomber, right?
yeah,
And if you just had like a tank, two tanks and a copter, for example, that's way better than a bomber for like that plan. So what you would have done is like you'd have parked an artillery here, which you did, right? That's correct. You'd wall for it, which you did slightly, right? But
yeah,
then you would use your vehicle mass here to like make sure all our vehicles are fighting each other, and the artillery just constantly hitting the tower, right? So I can't capture it, and that's how you would do it. Like the bomber and the copter thing were nice early on, and they certainly did get some work done, but you just see like the moment I get an AA, like it just fell apart rapidly, right?
yeah,
So I would say it's more a thing of about execution rather than like the idea can't work on this particular map for this particular matchup. Obviously, if you're like fighting into like a one bolt, don't do that. You'll just die,
yeah.
right? As Sasha. But you die anyway, so maybe it doesn't matter. But there are certain matchups you don't want to do that. Like if you're Eagle into like Max, for example, you're not gonna want to like start fighting. Your whole point is you want to delay fighting as long as possible.
Yeah,
So you have to understand like what the in the matchup, how do you win, right? But for you, for example, in this matchup, you win by like starting trade super early, so I can't get a huge value build up and eventually get my COP. Like you can see, even though we started trading super early, I'm getting really close to my COP every single time,
yeah,
right? So this is kind of like the state you want, right? Where we're trading constantly, so I can't get my COP, and then you pop your COP, I go back to zero, and then we restart this process all over again, where I'm trying to get my COP, right?
yeah.
But yeah, so this could have worked for you for sure. You just needed again. This is why like tanks are overpowered in fog, right? It's like an S rank unit because basically it's impossible to play the game without tanks, no matter what kind of gimmick you play for. As you can see in this game, like I just spam tanks. I have like I basically gave you like an ideal board state for your opening. It still doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you just can't do anything without tanks. I think you end up resigning pretty soon after this. If not this turn, then like the next turn.
Well,
But yeah,
at
it's
that point, I think I threw the towel. Maybe not this turn, but I think next turn I actually threw the towel because I see you trying to cap one of my building. At that point, I knew that was the end because I felt like I was behind, and I was behind because you matched my value and you matched my income, so my day to day is basically reduced to shit. So yeah, this reinforced the idea I got that Sasha doesn't actually counter Hawk. She just undermined the power. But Hawk is all about his day to day.
well, I wouldn't say Hawk is all about his day to day, right? It kind of depends. But in the Sasha matchup, Hawk definitely wants to try to get his COP if it's possible. But it's his day to day that saves him. Yeah, you're right on that one. Um, and yeah, like the other thing is like you just don't have enough tanks. Like I keep saying that, but it's really true. Like you have 4 recons right now, and you have 3 tanks. Like I don't think there's ever a world. Well, 2 recons died recently. That's why it's only showing 2.
I
But there's basically no worlds where you should have as many recons as you do have tanks, unless you're fighting Sammy.
I feel like our previous game, Sammy versus Sasha, was me playing like a 1100, but you're clearly better than that. That's why you destroyed me in the end. But this game, I feel like this is me playing like a 700. Right now, I really feel like I watch myself playing, and I'm like, that's exactly awesome 700 play.
I mean, yeah, it's somewhat true. Like I was really impressed by you like last game because like again you were like spamming. You had like a lot of I actually HQ cap you here. That's funny. But
Yeah.
yeah, like last game, you had like you were tank spamming. You were playing pretty correct death ball style. And like you were aggressive one side, defensive on the other, which is like kind of like basic strategy for the death ball. And then here I was like, this man went like artillery into like bomber into copter, and he has no tanks. And I've seen one tank the whole game. How is this gonna work?
Well,
And then yeah, I got
we
this.
gotta
This
learn.
point, I think I just yeah. And then yeah, I think like you actually have no way to break this wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have no way to break this wall.
But
Like you
I
don't
knew
have a
this
Neo
would
tank
come.
or
Like,
anything like that.
the moment I seen you starting capping the building, I knew it. I was like, this is the end. So, about the next game, let me show you the map I want to do the next one. That's my second favorite, and this is actually the
Mapless?
map I got the most wins in the current league. Where are the maps? I actually forgot. Where
Map list. Under rules and info.
rules and
Left,
info.
left.
Okay.
Under that. No. Back, back. It's right. It was the link under that.
Oh,
So
map
map
list.
list.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can click fog of war to filter. All right.
This one. This
Oh, Blackboard
is
confrontation.
this is my second favorite map, and this is actually the
Mhm.
map where I got the most wins in this current rotation. We need to do a game in this one, but In
Sure.
this one, would you say it's important to break that pipe seam fast because of the base there, or not really?
Um, it's kind of like 50-50. So it's not as good as like the pitch monster pipe scene, for example, where you always have to break it. But it's way better than boomerang step, where like there's actually like a lot of times you do want to break it. And I think most players do break it eventually. I personally think yes, you should eventually break it. Not necessarily like rushing it or anything. I don't think I ever like rush breaking that seam with like first vehicle. Uh, but it's still pretty good. One of the things that makes it okay to like not break this is like you can use this B-boat to like just ferry two infantry out of that base forever if you want to. But obviously like the B-boat will eventually run out of fuel, right? So yeah, it will run out of fuel eventually. So that's kind of like what makes breaking the pipe seam nice. Also, there are turns where you want to do triple tank build or like triple AA build, something like that. But yeah, in general, I would say you will break this pipe seam. You don't have to break it first vehicle, although it's fine if you do.
Uh, what would you say this pipe seam is important?
It's okay to break it mid game. I usually break it mid game. But there's no point rushing it.
Okay. Well, these are really good intel. So about that pipe seam, which unit would you use to break it?
I just use an artillery. That's the reason why I kind of like Kindle on this map because like I can just park an artillery here. Like there's a timing I have in my opening where I capture this, infantry moves out, artillery moves here, two shots this, and then moves out. So like there's a timing like that which I really like. But I think Andy is kind of like the best pick here if I'm not mistaken.
Lash also does well with that pipe seam. Right now I'm destroying really hard the indie player as Lash, and that's hilarious. But because of her extra firepower, you just sit there and you two shots that pipe seam there.
Yeah, Lash can also do it. Lash's problem on this map is number one, it's high income, which is never good for her. Um, the other thing is like Lash always has to consider how is she gonna beat Andy because Andy is very strong here, and the main problem against Andy is like if you don't KO his copters with one hit, you're either being super inefficient with attacks and you'll lose a tactical fight that way, or his STOP will ruin you because his copters all just suddenly heal 5 HP, right? So Kindle is, I think, the only CO who can actually stop him if he can get enough cities because on Scop, her copters can one hit kill his copters, right? Like that's a pretty good luck roll. You can't rely on AA purely to counter his copters because then Andy just goes pure copter tank and then you kind of just die, like from unit count stuff. It's kind of disgusting.
Okay, so it's official. That's the next one. If you want, we can start a game a bit later, like right after the stream if you want. I
Um,
really like this map. What were you about to say?
yeah, you can set up the game. I can probably play a few turns this today, but we probably won't be able to finish
Oh, that's
really
fine,
quickly.
man. We take our time. Can take a month. I don't care. As long as we play it, that's what matters the most, right?
Yep. All right. See you later, man. I have to head out.
Oh yeah, take care, man. Thank you a lot for coming again. I enjoy a lot having you around. I will kick you out, don't worry. So thank you, man. I really liked the experience, and now I learned a lot about boomerang. So man, I won't keep you around too long. Thank you very much, and have a good day, man. Take care.
You too, man. See you.
So everyone, that was kantbei. He comes very often over the channel. That was a quite short stream, sorry about that. Anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed. Do all of the YouTube stuff, like, comment, and subscribe. We will do more video or stream with kantbei, and everyone, take care and have a good day.